Welcome to Dancing with the Bards, where I, Ian, get to share one of my favorite board games with the other bards, Brooke,
Hi.
Will,
Hey!
and returning to the guest seat this month is Ace.
Hey guys, I'm over here.
Cosmic Encounter is a game where 3 to 5 people try to be the first alien race to conquer 5 other worlds. This strategy board game has you play as a race of aliens that has their own set of rules, unique to them, and is a social element in which you are encouraged to make, and sometimes break, alliances in order to secure victory. The first edition of this game was designed by Peter Lapka, Jack Kittredge, Bill Eberl, and Bill Norton in 1977 and published by Eon Games. The most recent edition is currently published by Fantasy Flight Games and came out in 2008, and has received a steady supply of expansions since its release. With different rules for every alien species and varying rules for every expansion, no game of Cosmic Encounter is exactly the same, which means players have to stay on their toes and can't always use the same strategy twice. With that explanation out of the way, let's start off, as usual, with number of players.
Would you like to start, Ian? Yeah.
I gave it a 3. 3 to 5 players is my sweet spot, as I've always said. It's a decent amount to get a group going. It's not too few, not too many. And there is an expansion for this that does allow for an extra 2 players, if you want.
Oh, okay. I would have made this 2, but I remember and paid attention to when Ian said that there was an expansion for up to 7, which I feel like is pretty good. I don't like games that don't start with 2 players because I don't hang out with a lot of people. But I think 3 to 5 is a very good thing. 3 to 7 is fucking fantastic. Man, that's fair.
Yeah. Are you an adult?
Yeah.
I would encourage if you weren't.
Okay.
I give it a 3 as well. I think that this is absolutely the best amount of players. I do agree that, you can't play with 2, but I maybe just going to hang out with more people.
4 to 5 is recommended for this, according to Board Geeks. And I agree, honestly. I think with 3 people, there's so much going on with this game that if you don't have 4 people, it could probably become a little bit. It's off balanced.
Yeah, and this is something I do want to point out. I originally marked it a 2. I'm going to move it up to a 3. I feel like this is one of the few games that genuinely benefits from having a lot more people. Normally the game slows down and starts to chug when you start getting into the larger numbers, 5+, 6+. It feels like this game, it would still be slow, but it would be a lot more evenly balanced and a lot more focused on specific goals rather than what I can do immediately on my turn.
Yeah.
I will say, though, I would rather play this with an odd number of players. Because we allianced, straight off the bat.
Yeah, that was definitely...
We also kind of started to break those pretty quick. Ace was very quick to just throw Will under a bus.
And to be honest, our alliance only formed because
it was the first turn.
It was the first turn, and I trusted Ace.
Yeah, and we both had the ability to trust each other at that moment.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you have an odd number of players, that's less likely to happen as quickly as it did for us.
I get that. Or one guy's just under the bus. Fuck him.
Yeah.
Also, alliances do not matter once you're 1 point away from victory.
This is true.
Brooke and I were close, and then I got to that point where I was like, I make a play for now, for all or nothing. If I do my second encounter and win, I win the game. And I was like, all right, I got a wild card. I'm picking Brooke because I think I could beat her.
And I took it personally.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, I also think that in our specific gameplay, someone made a galactic union against the winner. I don't know who did that, but it was a smart idea, and I think most players would do that.
I don't know, but it sounds like a real loser move to
do. Alright.
Alright, so moving on to inclusivity. I gave this a 2. I think that the big thing for this is the amount of text you have to read. That is a big obstacle if you have any kind of issues with that through either reading or maybe any
word comprehension.
Yeah, because word comprehension is a big part of learning how to play this game.
And Ian did have to point this out very early on, is some of the text is very, very much like, you must do this, or you can do this, and you have to read into the card's text to decide whether or not the card is a must-do or an optional do. That for me at least was that screwed me a couple of times.
And we'll talk about that on comprehension, I think, too.
I gave it a middling 1.5 for this.
I gave it a 2 for the color blindness aspect. I wasn't even thinking about the text. The colors are very specific, and I felt that some people with color blindness thought they were brown.
Yeah.
But like we had the colors are red, green, and the other big one's yellow, right?
Blue, purple, and yellow.
The blue and purple are pretty close together.
The expansion ones are white and black.
White and black, fine. Blue and purple are a little too close in value.
But at the same time, too, I as much as being colorblind affects my daily life, it's one of those things. You can't fault somebody for using primary colors.
Yeah.
I don't expect a publisher to produce like obscure colors dependent on the person's color.
And I checked with you initially, real quick, just before we started, and you were able to tell the difference between the two still.
Yeah, I could still completely tell the difference. They're definitely different enough that you can tell they're different shades of color.
I'm just gonna bring up too that like adding white to a color instantly makes it a totally different color. Like you can use a tint in your advantage, and it won't cost that much more. Just not putting in more pigment, because these are usually based with like a white injection. They could have varied that. It could have been like a lavender instead of a purple, just by not putting as much pigment in.
All right, moving on to comprehension then, because I think that's a big space where we might have some very varied opinions on. I actually think that it's all pretty clear-cut comprehension-wise. The way the game works, it has different phases just for everyone who might not have played this before. And as long as you can follow those phases, which you can find them on almost every card that has a specialized ability, which is a lot of them, you can get a pretty good idea of how these powers work and the rules for the different races and artifact cards. All of the text that's really important is in bold text. All of the phases and when you can use them are highlighted on the boards. But that said, there's a lot to take into consideration when you're doing these, especially if you're adding in things like tech. If you have a race of aliens that it's really hard to follow their rule set. We thankfully were not graced with any of those too much in this, but like the zombies get really problematic. We have to start like adding ships in as bottle caps sometimes we've done because we've just gotten so many of them.
Too much zombie.
I also thought. I agree. I understand why it wasn't as easy to pick up if it was not for anyone. But I think by the first turn that we had, or by the first like player finishing their turn, I had picked it up. But I also play a lot of games with turnovers like this, like Magic the Gathering, and I do a lot of TCGs. So.
Oh, that was a 2 for me, by the way.
That was 3.
All right, I gave it a 2. Like you said, they definitely have a lot of nice tools to help make the comprehension a lot easier. I still think it just from the sheer amount of text that you have to read, it does get to be a bit much. But yeah, I rated it a 2.
I gave this a 1 just because for me it was difficult. Like when I read the 2, I got a green race, which is supposed to be the easier ones, and I got a red one. So I got to read the 2 of them, and I couldn't understand the red one.
Can I ask which red one you got?
The cute little furry white
Citadel.
cat. Yes.
You got Citadel. In the future, if we ever play this again, I'll explain to you how that works.
Okay, because I looked at it, I tried to read it, and I went, I read the Odyssey.
They're actually really fun and very defensive.
Yeah, I read the Odyssey and Iliad in 4th grade on my own volition and loved it and had the comprehension for it, and I don't know what's going on.
If I can just say real quick, all you do is you can play your encounter cards onto those planets you have, your home planets, and that adds to your defense if someone attacks it.
Okay. It just...
Oh, so it like really breaks. Like with the red cards, it breaks with the roll. I see where you get confused because we hadn't done the first round.
Yeah. Not knowing what it was, if I had not had you there, I would not have been able to play this without looking up YouTube to like run-throughs or something else. I would need someone there.
like Oliver said on the Blood Bowl episode, you need a guide for this game. It's one of those kind of ones where, with someone who knows how to play, it's pretty easy to explain. But getting into it, I can definitely see where it might be difficult.
Yeah, for most people, this is why we each fill out our own, because like with my dyslexia and right now I am unfocused. My ADHD is not under control. I'm having a hard time with it. But that's the great part about this.
Agreed.
So we're set on comprehension, I think.
Yeah.
Any final notes on that? Because I think it's a big part of this conversation for this game.
This is what tanked the scoring for me, were these two categories.
Yeah, I agree. This did not. It could be better. I do think it deserves an extra point just for the fact that it's making an effort to simplify what would be a very complex game if some of these things were.
Without all those helpful bits in the end, this would be so much harder.
Oh yeah. When you were when you first came over here and were explaining to me this game, I thought this was going to be like worse than Blood Bowl. I was like, oh man, like I think Blood Bowl is complicated, and there's like 7 phases to a turn, and like each phase you have to do stuff, and all the phases interact with each other.
3 of those phases just go right by.
Well, exactly, but without actually playing through it, it doesn't feel like that when you're explaining it to somebody.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, it's like Magic, but with extra steps.
Because Magic needs more steps.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I
like extra steps.
I will say that one of the reasons I gave it a 2, even though I do realize that it's pretty complex, games of this variety, where you have a lot of these moving parts, we don't cover them too often on the podcast. The more like complicated ones, like Twilight Imperium, they get a lot more complicated than this.
Yeah.
This is a kind of good ease into bigger board games.
I'm just waiting for you to pull it out and make us do it, to be honest.
I refuse. Larry really wants to cover it. So
yeah, we're gonna do it eventually.
Okay.
That's probably gonna be.
I was like, this is the hill I'm gonna die on.
That's why.
But then you sold your soul to the soundboard guy.
Yeah.
He's cashing in his 1.
That's why I'm a guest. I get to say no.
Due to a technicality, Will gets 2 games this year.
All right. So if we're good on comprehension, moving into availability, I gave this a 2. You can't really get this in many game stores. I lucked out when I got mine. It happened. They happened to have 1 copy in our local game store because a bunch of people were like, "Hey, you should sell this," and I was the one who bought it. It's otherwise though, you can get this online pretty easily. You can get it right from the manufacturer, or you can get it used. You can find it all over the place. The expansions, I think, are a little harder to get, but I think they're all also fully available on the site.
I gave it a 2.5 for that reason. I only docked it a half point for not being in brick and mortar stores because my shopping habits are mostly online. So
As are most people since COVID.
Yeah, so it's not that much of a detriment.
And thank you for bringing that up. I rated this a 3.
I
don't really go to brick and mortar game stores anymore, as there are not a lot of good options within reasonable driving distance. I don't really want to drive 45 minutes to buy a board game that is going to be significantly marked up from what I can get buying directly from the manufacturer or the retailer or the publisher. That's the word.
Without doxing ourselves, our selection in this immediate area is even more limited than it was 5 years ago.
I think outside, unless our viewers live, or our listeners, sorry, not viewers, our listeners live in a big city, they've gotten harder and harder to find because it's so specialized.
But even on top of that, like, and again, not to dox where we are, if you want anything other than Magic the Gathering, you have to go to a specialized store. And I like my war games. The nearest place for me is 45 minutes to an hour away in a different state.
I've been under the impression that if you go out to, and this is just from other people I've talked to, if you go out to rural areas, you probably find a lot more of these kinds of stores out there.
That's what I've also been told as well.
Maybe I'm just going to the wrong places because the one time I went to Ohio, I couldn't find any.
Ohio has so many.
Yeah. I was in
I can't believe you just doxed where we were.
I was in London, New London. Couldn't find anything. Then again, was just like a Budweiser plant out there, so that was on me.
Yeah,
I
everyone's
was looking
there.
for something.
I don't want to make that joke.
Good idea.
I mean, and
I'd
if
rather not
any
piss
of
off
our
Ohio.
if any of the listeners would like to open the game store where we are, the Bermuda Triangle, we will be frequenting it.
Hey, Rhombus. It was a triangle, and then we moved there. Now it's got four.
Yeah, it's got an extra point.
Yeah.
All right, so I think availability is pretty cut and dry for this.
Yeah.
Going on to materials, it's my biggest gripe with this game. I gave it 1.5, and the reason I did, I was very torn because on one hand, the cardboard on this thing disintegrates like nobody's business. My copy I've had for about 6 or 7 years, and you guys can see the wear and tear on that. It doesn't really it tries to do some organizing stuff. It has like a pocket that I think are supposed to be for the cards, but the sleeve doesn't fit it. So I have no idea. I'm gonna like ask Fantasy Flight. I'm gonna say, hey, what is this for? Because if it's for the cards, it doesn't fit.
Yeah,
But I see you made an effort.
we spent about 5 minutes before we started just trying to figure out what it could possibly be. Like, we tried putting the case that holds the cards in so many different positions. We tried putting the cards themselves and they slid right through. There was no use for it.
And I would have given this a full 1 if it weren't for the spaceship minis.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the spaceships are so cool.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
spaceship minis are carrying the materials real hard on this one.
Will and I are both mini people. And, like, when I saw these, I looked at it and said, can you imagine painting these in, like, monochromatic? So it's just a little bit.
Maybe give like a metallic sheen.
Yeah, so, like, going over it with, like, I had red, so, like, going over it with a rose gold. And then, like,
Oh, they look beautiful.
I have want to buy the game just for that. I did give it a 2. It looks in nice condition. There's not a lot of red on the box. It's not going to lose its light fastness, which is my biggest gripe, just as an artist and in general life. What I did notice is the cardboard quality was pretty trash. If you know that a piece is going to have a very fine point, like
The gate.
gate. I didn't know what they'd call it. It looks like a blaster, first of all, so I got a little nit from the artwork. But that part has a very sharp corner and a very thin corner. If you want to do something that sharp, they should have used a different material because that corner was bent, and I'm sure if I got when did that bend?
Oh, it had to have happened in the first few years.
Okay, because I'm saying, like, I can imagine that happening within the first time putting it in the box after popping it out.
I will also say with my copy, it lived in the trunk of a car for a while. But even so, it was the cardboard quality when you bought it looked great, but it disintegrated very quickly. I've had other people who have bought this game before, and they got all the expansions. They didn't have room for them. These boxes disintegrated. They now carry this thing in a giant garbage bag filled with Ziplocs and rubber bands.
For organization, I will say there are some people doing custom organization you can buy. And I didn't see any, but if any 3D printers make their own gate to sell, I feel like that would be a huge business.
Oh, yeah.
Because the design they have for it, it looks great probably on the board, but as soon as you pop it out, it loses a lot of things in a design standpoint. Like, I didn't know it was a gate until someone said, oh, look at the gate in the middle. Like, I didn't like it.
It's a little busy. It looks cool. I also personally, this is a personal thing for me. I don't like the way the gate is pointed. It doesn't make sense that you have the gate with the big thing that goes small when it should be coming from. Oh,
It's meant to look
It's
like an
supposed,
arrow.
yeah, it's supposed to look like you're.
Oh my God!
God, I hate how it goes to a point and like it's pointing.
Oh, because it was like spaceship fire death laser.
I totally understand what they're going for, but if they wanted this to be a long-lasting game and for the price it should be, they should not have had it be an actual arrow. It should have been like a trapezoid, like just a rectangle with a pointy end to it.
Yeah.
And then just have the artwork be a true point, because that would have lasted longer than what they did.
Agreed.
As I said, it's my biggest gripe with this game. But that takes us out of system, which I think is where this definitely fell a little bit, and into gameplay, which it might do a little better in. Setup. For this game, it's once again, I give it 1.5 for setup as well because on one hand, there's a lot of moving pieces here. Getting everyone a randomized alien race, getting everyone randomized artifacts, that increases when you have more players and more gimmicks going on for each expansion. But it's not difficult, it's just time consuming. Everything overall, you have the hyperspace gate, you have the 5 planets, you have the stacks of minis, which are very easy to stack and set up. It's not bad, it's just a lot.
I would totally agree. I didn't know we were doing half, so I rounded up to 2, but I think 1.5 is really good because there's a lot of just it does the board game thing where a separate deck is mixed in with the original deck, but so they both have the same backs. So you kind of have to make sure during setup that you're doing everything correctly and not accidentally mixing decks, which is pretty easy, but it's steps like that lead it to be a longer setup than is
necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess. No, I have a better word, but I can't think of it.
And I mean, on top of that, like what you did, that you said that we weren't supposed to do the setup that way, but we did it for the sake of time.
Well, I said we weren't normally supposed to move the planets towards areas. Usually, you just point a gate directly at someone else's table. But I moved the planets for the camera to see.
No, I was talking when we were doing the race selection.
Oh no, that's how it's supposed to be done. No, yeah, I considered taking out some of the more difficult ones initially, but I was reading through most of them and they seemed mostly straightforward. I probably should have done it now, thinking back on it. But I was looking at like the tripler, and it's like, oh, just triple your number. I'm like, okay, well that's not that difficult.
Times 3, I'm out of here.
I think it's difficult in strategy, not necessarily in concept.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, on that topic, I gave it a 2. I thought I should probably deduct half a point because of that misunderstanding.
Yeah, I will say I don't normally do half points, Ace. The only time I usually do is if there's like one redeeming quality that saves it from being a 1.
Okay.
And I think for this one, it's the fact that, yes, I have to randomize everything every time I add something to the deck. Yes, I have to sift through it every time, but it's not really difficult setup. It's just grunt work.
That's entirely fair. A lot of steps doesn't mean complicated steps, but it's still something to do.
All right, if we want to move on to rate of play, 3 for me.
Oh, yeah,
it's easy to stay engaged in this game. You're constantly looking for an opportunity to get ahead of everyone else, even if it's not your turn. Even if you're not involved in combat, you could see that someone else is in a position where their power is the only thing letting them win, and from the sidelines use a cosmic zap just to throw a wrench into the workings.
Who would do that?
I don't know. Who would do that?
I am very politically motivated.
Yeah, I loved the rate of play. The last time I was on here, we were playing a Dragon Tea game, and it was cute, and I liked the game. It was fun, but I did find it very easy to kind of just zone out on other people's turns. But this game keeps you engaged because in every turn you are thinking about what ability you can use next for your actual turn, and what things you can do right now to help out people. So no matter what, you're there for someone else's turn, even if you're not involved in it directly. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those games that you have to think on your feet. You're constantly adjusting your plans going forward because things are constantly changing on the game board. The one thing I will say, I wish the Destiny cards, there was a lot less attacking a direct color and a lot more situational ones.
The special ones?
Yeah, the special ones.
There were only two of those, I believe. Maybe 3.
There were way more than that, it felt like.
No, so for the Destiny deck, I will. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I made a reshuffle. That was what it was.
Oh, because I know we got a wild. We had.
There are 3 of each color, 3 wild and 3 of the specials. You can get more of each with the expansions, including like environmental effects for the Destiny deck.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at more. There were 6 total. You don't have to attack directly a color. I think that would make the game a little bit more strategic and less like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing in this situation. And I don't know, I had to come up with a plan against everybody. And towards mid-game, I was getting to be like, well, if I go up against Ian, then I'm kind of SOL.
I will say, as you said, though, without the expansions in base game, the Destiny deck is very lackluster compared to how much is going on with everything else.
Yeah. And I think that's my main point.
I didn't have to worry about the
Three.
Destiny deck, so I can't actually say that because my alien species specifically negated pretty much the entirety of the Destiny deck. So I cannot speak on how it was, and I thought it was okay, but also I didn't have to think about it.
Going into price then, for I believe this is I have my
$69.99.
Yeah, $69.99 for the base game, so about $70 for a brand new copy. There are 7 expansions in total. All but one of those are $28 each. They add about 20 races, 1 gimmick, and then the most recent expansion came out last year, and it's I think $59 total for like 35 extra races and an extra set of cards for every one of the gimmicks that came out for the expansions up to so far. It's a lot. If you're playing this with all the expansions, first of all, why? You have over like 200 alien races to choose from, you madman. And they're not always as balanced as they are in the main game. Some of them get really out there, and it gets really messy.
I gave this a 1.5. I was gonna give it more, but just I have an issue when boxes don't have organization. We're definitely past the point where we don't know how to design organization. It's just lazy. Like they came with baggies, that was great. They were decent baggies, but like we're past the point of just baggies.
The baggies aren't decent either. I'll say I give it a 2. By the way,
Do
like
I
I said,
replace the baggies?
I've seen other people have to replace the baggies.
I didn't like the bags.
I give it 2. I think for how much it is, you should be getting at the very least an organizer that actually works.
Yeah.
The box art's nice, and the card art is very nice.
Except the gate.
And the
I
gate
like
could
All
work.
the cardboard tokens are very lacking in art, but the race cards for the alien races are very detailed.
Yeah, I personally really liked those. But like I said, I gave it a 2. I thought for the amount you're spending, you could definitely get a lot more.
I agree. I gave it 2, and then I didn't. I thought it was $50, and then I heard it was 70, so I reduced it from 2 to 1.
I gave it 1.5 just because it does have. I could see going to this constantly, especially with the amount of races. You can kind of choose and pick, and you get tired of one of friend would be pitched to the side and it wouldn't hurt the gameplay. But I just feel that the quality of the materials, which I am a materials junkie, does not match.
Personally, for the game itself, just price wise, real quick, the reason I gave it a 2, a lot of games like this are about that price range. Although 70 is a little much, I think 60 would have been a little better fit for this. $30 for an expansion is not bad, and especially if you're getting like an extra 5th of everything you had so far. But it's a little absurd when if you want everything, it costs you like $300.
Yeah.
This is like the Sims equivalent of a tabletop game.
Yes.
I was thinking that, but I didn't know if we were allowed to talk about video
Why
games.
I'm pretty sure everyone. If you don't know what The Sims are,
Someone recently totaled up how much all of the expansions for the new Sim game would be, and it's into the thousands of dollars. It's
like
ludicrous.
but to be fair, some of those are like the laundry pack that no one's gonna buy.
I will
some
have you
people
know,
are-
I own the laundry pack,
Okay.
and it has made my life a lot worse.
But why have to pay?
Every single house has to have a laundry machine.
What? You pay for the privilege, Will.
Yeah, having dirty clothes all over my house, and I'm too poor to afford a laundry machine.
Yeah, because you spent it all on the idea of having laundry machines.
I choose to believe.
Fantasy Flight, by the way, does have other things they do this kind of stuff with. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of X-Wing.
No.
Oh yes.
Oh, I've
yes.
heard of it. I don't know who I heard from.
Oh wait,
Where-
is that the miniature based one?
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. These
Yeah.
are the same people.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
They do a
they're
lot
really
of
following
theme games.
Fantasy Flight may become a new favorite of mine.
A new favorite, but that was spelled with a. Oh wait, you know what?
With a
Fantasy
PH.
Fight probably isn't spelled with PH, is it?
No,
I don't know why I thought it was. Oh, because there's the game Fantasy. My bad.
but they're very used to selling you games piecemeal for sure. Which brings us into extras, I believe.
Yeah.
Which I gave a 3 because there's so much you could never possibly want more than they offer. You might want less.
Yeah, no, that's my problem. The amount of extras is too damn high. I gave it a 2. There's too many of them. Choice decision would be an issue. I do like that you can totally take things out if you didn't like them. Like if you didn't want the loser constantly trying to flip the script and make you lose by winning. You could take that out and it wouldn't hurt the game. But I think the amount of races they added on is a little much.
Mm. No, that's definitely a fair criticism of this game.
That's how I felt about Munchkin.
I like Munchkin, and I like because of how much it has. And I like way too much, and I like having a completely different game every single time. Every single, that's later. I realized that you have a whole category for it. What I'm about to say. So
For replay value?
yes.
Yeah.
So I
We're almost
will.
on the same tangent.
I will hold off my thing on extras until we get to replay value.
All right, so
Oh, hold on. Give me 1 second. Yes. So let me
Yes,
talk
Will?
on that. Let me talk on this. All right.
I'll get this paper
Fucking,
together.
fucking rustling over here.
Got an essay.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's a point where things become excessive, and when you're not addressing the actual concerns that players might have, like you said, people are carrying this around in garbage bags with smaller sandwich bags. I don't think there's any single option sold legitimately for organizers for this, which is a very needed thing. 2-star.
From what I saw on the organizer I found, you'd have to buy 2 of them. They're priced at $57 each. And then you would have to have another box to put it in because they fit directly into the box.
The main box.
Yes, which you don't like. And I don't like either. It's not reinforced well. Sorry.
Is it possible to retroactively change a grade from a different game? Because these guys are putting Games Workshop, they're giving them a run for their money right now.
The worst part is that slot in the I'm going back to materials real quick. That slot in the board that just throws me off because it looked like they tried because they fit the cards themselves, but the sleeve is like a quarter of an inch too big to fit.
Don't you know that's
But
the
they
discard
also
pile?
they also gave you holes so you could reach in and pull out the part of the box so you could put things back there. Like it was so close. It was so close to being effective. The only game which we haven't covered, and I don't think we'll ever cover, that has a worse organizational system is Stardew Valley, the board game. That is the only worse organizational system. Yes, it does.
And apparently it has a very bad
Oh, it's so bad. It's just loose, and the whole video game is in one, created into one board game. The whole thing.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Outside of the stream.
But it's a terrible.
Where are we now?
We are in
moving
enjoyment.
into enjoyment, into personal. 3 for me. This is easily one of my favorite games of all time.
I'm hard on it, but 3 as well. I did enjoy it.
I'm gonna give it a 2. I think it's very fun, and the opportunities to screw each other over are a little high, but in a good way. I feel like if alliances were a little bit more beneficial long term rather than just in the moment, that might increase my enjoyment a little bit more, rather than having these sort of unspoken alliances. But other than that, I think this is a very fun game. I would play again 100%. But we'll get to that.
I give it a 3. I have a lot to say about this. I think the first thing I said when we were done with the stream credit, I told you that I agree this is probably my new favorite board game. I just loved it. I am a bad person in real life, and I like manipulating my friends for the bit. And God, when you can't get mad at me because it was in a board game. That's all I need. That's all I need.
No responsibility.
This is an outlet. This is mentally healthy for me. I have to enjoy it.
Very on brand.
I had such a good time. I don't know if you'll notice, I made that Galactic Union against Ian. Because I knew he was gonna win, and I was still at 0 points, and I got to like 4 by the end because in like a turn and a half. It's just I like, and again, I'm a bad person. I like manipulating people. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious when you're doing it to your friends who love you, and then later to be like, "Hey, I'm sorry about making you say mind goblin so I can make a peas nuts joke." Sorry about that.
I finally got an apology. Let it be known.
It took like 5.5
hours later.
And it's on record.
It's on record that I
constantly play this for yourself.
Though to be fair, I did also do the mind goblin on record. So that's fucking with that. I genuinely love this game. I would play it again. I would play it today. We're doing other stuff today, but I would play it tomorrow. I would play it every day. I love this game.
I'm glad you really enjoyed it.
I had such a good time.
You'll probably be invited over to play more often.
Fuck yeah.
I would enjoy playing this frequently as well.
Yes.
Maybe not that frequently, but
We'll get into that in Replay Valley too, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. They tie in together.
Yeah, this is all part of the same theme, personal opinion.
That's why there's little headers where it says this is the person section.
Yeah.
Because they all kind of overlay.
For recommendation though, I only gave this a 2. There's a lot of factors involved there. One, as I said, I'm not pleased with the materials for this. The expansions for this can make it seem very overwhelming. The price is just a little higher than your standard board game of this size, not even including the expansions. And it's a lot. If you're not playing this with someone who already knows how to play, because when I bought this is the first board game I ever bought, like myself, personally. I played it at our local game store with a bunch of friends from that copy that was in a plastic bag. I loved it so much that I walked over to the shelf, dropped $70 of college kid money, and was like, this is mine now. And then never got to play it because we always wanted to play the one with all the expansions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For the recommendation for me, I gave it a 1.5. I think it'd be a very specific person that I'd give it to for several reasons. So I will never condone things that will cause fights in friend groups.
Which is why it happens in a proper game.
Yeah. So I'd have to recommend this to friends like Ace and Ian. Like people that I know this is their thing. I wouldn't just go like, here's a game of Monopoly. This is gonna make your friendship better. Like I wouldn't do that with this game. Between that, the materials, the price, I give it a 1.5. It has to be a very specific person. I wouldn't tell my entire friend group, go out and buy this game.
I probably would. On the other hand, this is one of those games that's very fun. I think I could comfortably recommend it to anybody who's into the board game scene. It's
If you heard that crap, I don't know if it actually came out. That was my shoulder. So don't fear. I'm in one piece.
Brooke is just cautioning me for poor audio quality again.
No, this is just Brooke's falling apart. There's probably some random coughing in this. Like, it's been a hell of a month.
What did you give it for recommendation?
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, I gave it a full 3. I think this is, like I said, one of those things I can recommend it to anybody. It's got enough diversity of play in it that I feel like if you're into the board game scene, you'll be able to find some race eventually that will do it for you.
It appeals, I think, to anyone who, one, really likes that social aspect of games where you can make and destroy alliances on a whim. It also really appeals to anyone who has that huge drive to win, but isn't a jerk about it.
Yeah.
Because you hit a point, like when I was towards the end, right before Ace created the union against me, I turned, I did everyone dirty. I destroyed 8 of Willow's ships. I took over one of his planets, and then turned on Brooke on my next go through.
Mind you, we were in a very strong alliance.
Yeah, at that point, I made a decision. I could have attacked anyone. I chose to attack her because I figured I could get away with it. I was thinking about only winning towards the end, and I, like Icarus, was my wings melted and I fell to the ground.
You fell to the
Hopefully check
classic
that out on the
blunder.
YouTube channel if you want to see exactly what happened.
To be fair, the Galactic Union was also based on screwing other people over, but mostly screwing over Ian. Getting everyone to use their stuff so I could propel myself because I realized the game was about to end.
That's also a really big thing with this too. I really enjoy the aspect of as someone gets near to 5 points, everyone turns on them. It's you against everyone now, and they will pool their resources to make sure you don't win.
This was the most fun I've had being a crab in a bucket with a bunch of other crabs.
I think that we can go into replay value at this point.
Yeah.
3 for me.
3.
3.
This game you could play 100 times and still do new things.
Yeah.
How many races total are there?
In this edition, it's on
the cheat sheet that you should have been reading the whole time.
I didn't have it in front of me.
Yeah, the cheat sheet's underneath all of the pages. There we go.
We could just say one of every number and then look it up later, and then we'll just put
Magic of editing.
Yeah. I have done that for a
All
minute.
right. So I just wanted to make this a point. Do you see that E in there? We're now getting into numbers that are so large that we're
for
You did the
probability.
permutations.
So we're talking like more stars in our galaxy with combinations of players and races. This game is the most replayable of anything we will ever cover.
And I think
I even wrote this next to it. I said, would give 4 if possible.
And I would like to mention real quick for this one, because it's definitely one of this game's strengths, the variant rules for this. Because even just in the base game itself, you have the tech cards, which you don't have to use, but you can, and it's an entire deck of stuff that's just extra. You have using 2 races at once for a game, which is there's rules for. You have hidden rolls until it becomes revealed or necessary. So we would play this game, and you might never reveal your race, or you might reveal it right away, depending upon if it benefits you or not, or if it comes up. That has caused some problems in the past, but I've done that playthrough, and it's great. And then there's also you can play with just 4 planets and 5 ships on each.
Ooh. Oh, okay. Flip things around. And that just goes to show there are so many ways to play this game. I think going forward, we should use this as a standard for replayability and compare off of this, because I think we found our gold standard for
replayability.
Hell yeah. If it's going to be different every time, that's the most replayable game there is.
Yeah. Honestly.
Even some role-playing games don't get this.
Yeah, not even New Vegas has this kind of replayability, and I've played that for like 1,000 hours.
I have at least 2 career lifetimes on that game.
Okay. Look at this dick measuring contest.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, but for the record, mine is bigger.
Yeah. I'm like a
All right,
Ken doll
gentlemen, we can do the peeing
Sliding
contest
scale
later.
time.
Oh yeah, sliding scale.
Oh yeah, okay. Classic versus innovative.
Oh yeah.
I personally think that this is a relatively. I don't really know how to rate this, honestly. On one hand, I want to give it a 1 in innovative, but on the other hand, I also kind of want to give it a 1 in classic. It's got a lot of classic core, like Uno, elements where you're just playing cards to beat numbers, and that's really at its core when you're doing a combat. That's all it is. Is you're playing cards, beat number, and you win. But at the same time, too, there's a lot of strategy and exterior things that go into that. I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna do a split point. I'm gonna do 1 point in each for a total of 2.
Total.
Yeah, 2 total.
I gave it a 3 innovative. I haven't played another game like this. This could just be because I live in a small box. But I found it to take all those things you're talking about with just beating numbers and levels it up in a way that I haven't seen before. And that might change as the podcast goes on, but right now I'm impressed. So I'm giving you 3 innovative.
Yeah, 3 innovative for me as well. There are definitely elements of this that you'll see in other games. It has a very strong social element to it. It has a lot of troop movement, strategy, but every single card you have that's not like an encounter card has its own set of rules that you can play at any time. The game changes literally every time someone uses a power or plays a card.
Yeah, no, and I agree. It is, and that's what I'm trying to get at with it, with the whole the peripheral things going on that affect the the underlying combat.
Mm-hmm.
It can get complex.
I agree. I don't have anything else to say that hasn't already been said.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry.
I have an
It's
innovative
okay. No,
one.
you're just so thorough and handsome. I mean,
No handsome.
Not wrong.
Aww.
So, speaking of what you said though about how each card has a different rule or a different thing, I gave it a 2 on complex just because I feel like that deters from it.
We're on the same boat on that one.
I also gave it a 2 on complex.
I gave it a 3 in complex. I think that layer of complexity is good for something like this.
I also think
I can see that, but that's why we had to take so much out for comprehension because everything was I need to remember this like thoroughly. It was integral.
Yeah.
I will say, they've tried to simplify it as much as they could for what it is. If it weren't for the fact that you had the explanations for everything written out in very clear language with hints and guides on every card, it probably would have scored lower in complex for me. But they definitely put the effort in. But at the end of the day, it's just a little too complex, even with all the help they give you.
It's how I felt with the extras. It was too much of a good thing. It was like putting an entire bottle of chocolate syrup on top of the sundae instead of just a little drizzle.
Yeah.
But boy, do I love chocolate. I think the complexity was really good, and I think more complex equals more good. The more complex something is, the cooler it is. That's why NASA is so awesome.
He's got a point.
I've got a point.
You do, and I think if anyone really likes to have a lot of moving parts in their game, they probably would have scored this a little higher on complexity.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
Higher complexity.
I do want to make a distinction as well. I like Blood Bowl because it has a lot of moving parts, but I also hate Blood Bowl because there's a lot of moving parts that I have to keep track of. I like this game because there's a lot of moving parts, but at no point in time do I ever feel overwhelmed by the things that are going on. Everything kind of keeps turning at its own pace, and then when I need to do something, it's already lined up in the position that I need it to be in. And part of that is planning and strategy, but with something like this, that kind of gets grouped in.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so are we ready to do final scores? Any last comments on this?
I forgot to mention off the top that mini quality is fantastic with these. I got so caught up in the box.
Oh yeah, I did want to say yeah.
Yeah, so that happens quite often. But I do really like this. The flashing they put in makes sense. Like they're very quality. They feel nice. They look nice. Everything makes sense for what they put where. Like it's very detailed. For like even they stack. That was amazing to me. Is that these little ships stack on top of each other.
And it makes it very easy to keep track of everything.
And it makes it a little more organized on the field. I just wish they gave the same attention to the box.
Yeah. And it looks like they tried to and stopped halfway through.
Yeah, it's like they've done all this other stuff to make it so complex that they kind of burnt themselves out. So when they got to the box in the last little bit, they just couldn't do that last push. Sorry.
No.
I will always take too long for materials.
So I will say this is my second most favorite board game of all time. And so no one thinks that I'm biased. I gave it a 33 total.
That's what I gave too.
I give it a 32.
I gave it a 37, and I think they're all whips and weaklings. God, I love this game. I had so much fun.
I think you're feeling the same high that I did the first
Probably.
time. That I did this.
Genuinely, yes.
And like this is a game that was made for someone like me.
Yeah.
No, I love this game.
Considering this is my least favorite kind of game. Like I'm not a fan of games where you're pitting people against each other. I'm much more T-Dragon, where it's just everyone hanging out doing their own thing. So like this is rough for me usually.
It's
And
almost.
it still has a 33.
I know you don't like hidden roll games, and it's very similar to a hidden roll game, except you know everyone's out to get you.
Yeah.
I'm a people pleaser. If they haven't figured this out yet, but like I'm a people pleaser, so these kind of games really make me anxious.
And I'm extremely paranoid, so I already think that everyone's out to get me. So this is my element. I was ready.
Yeah, with the Destiny cards, you can't even choose not to attack your
That is
allies.
the part that gives me the most.
God, it's awesome. It's so cool.
Like I like that the choice is out of my hands, but at the same time, if I have to attack my alliance and I don't have a negotiation card, I am like internal panic. Like I don't know how to proceed.
You can't hold grudges in this game.
I do also, completely unrelated, but I did want to throw out that this game has a lot of feel the same to a similar 4X strategy game known as Stellaris. I was mentioning this to you. Now playing it after the fact, this does feel the same sort of way. It feels like a quick skirmish match, just tabletop version instead of PC version.
You were saying that a lot of the art was similar.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
A
like
lot of the-
spacey stuff.
Yeah, it's all spacey stuff, but I mean, some of the card art looks like directly from the game. It looks like Stellaris kind of stole some inspiration.
Well, which came out first?
Oh, this game 100%.
Yeah,
Okay.
1977.
Well, 1977 for the first copy. The art did change in the 2008.
Yeah, and Stellaris
Oh,
came
so
out
it's
like
like
2012.
2012, I want to say?
Yeah, 2012.
Okay, so yeah, either way.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to check on that.
That was good to know. I had no idea.
Originally, it was on Medieval Knights.
All right, so everyone seemed to enjoy the game. I'm glad, honestly. As I said, it's one of my favorites. I was very excited to share it on the podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this fun episode. And a special thanks to Ace for joining us today. Thank you, Ace, for joining us. Do you have any pluggables for us?
I do. Hey guys, Null Puppet here. That is NULLPUPPET. It's a YouTube channel. I make a video every Saturday without fail, and they're all good. They're all real good.
And we'll be recording a snack review with previous guest Larry on your channel.
That we will, and it's gonna be good, like all the other stuff. Check it out.
You're just probably gonna have to look back in the playlist a little bit to find it because
Yeah,
we're doing this. This won't come out right away.
Yeah.
Neither am I.
If you like this, you can find more episodes on Spotify, Podbean, and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to know when we're streaming or running events in the future, you can follow us on Twitter at Dance with Bards, on Mastodon at withbards at creator.gg, on Facebook at Dancing with the Bards, or join our Discord. We always keep events posted and up to date on there.
And there's also other community things on there, like finding other players and things. So it's
Absolutely.
Not, it's not just us.
Oh yeah,
It's
we
not
play
just us
games
saying
too.
hi.
And let you promote all your tabletop stuff on
Yeah,
our channel too.
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a blast.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Goodbye.
Snacks, snacks, snacks,
Hey.
snacks, 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 snacks.